なお手。知ってるの？そりゃ。
Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. It's time, once again, to guess that Banzuke. We did the instant Banzuke after the November Basho, of course, and now it's time to lock in an official guess. Spoiler, this isn't going to have many changes from the instant version, but I've had a chance to think through the various points of logic, and now I can explain in greater detail why my picks will be wrong. Now, as you can see, we've got everyone sorted mathematically, so let's get into it. Starting at the top, Terunofuji is the Yokozuna, so he stays in the top slot. Kotozakura, Hoshoryu, and Onosato remain the three active Ozeki and are ranked by the number of wins they had in November, which, coincidentally, keeps them in the exact same spots. Kirishima was Sekiwake 1 East, but went 6 and 9 and thus will drop out of the Sanyaku. Daisho therefore bumps over to 1 East thanks to his winning record as the other Sekiwake, and Wakamoto Haru, as the only winning Komusubi, slides up to Sekiwake 1 West. Since Kiri and Shodai are dropping out of the Sanyaku, we need two guys to take their place, so say hello once again to Abi and Wakataka Kage. Abi's 11 wins at 3 East should rank him just ahead of Waka's 10 wins at 2 East, so we've got Abi at Komusubi East and Waka at Komusubi West. I have Takano Sho here just to show that mathematically he ranks in the Sanyaku. He was 6 East, 11 wins minus 4 losses is plus 7 ranks, and he was the only other Maegashira wrestler to hit that level, so I wanted to show that in this layout. But it won't be enough to open a new Komusubi slot, so we'll slide him down to Maegashira 1 East. Now let's start sorting out the Maegashira ranks. Well, let's first start with these guys at the top, because this is where the most questions are probably going to happen. Kirishima will probably move up to Maegashira 1 West. Now I'm going to sort these guys where I think they'll be, but let me explain the different permutations here. First, at Maegashira 1. Is it possible that Kirishima ends up at Maegashira 1 East and Takano Sho at Maegashira 1 West? Yes, it is possible. However, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Takano Sho will be at 1 East and Kirishima at 1 West. This is the reason, and this applies to other situations that we're going to see a little bit later. When somebody who's coming down from a high rank ends up getting pushed ahead of somebody coming up from a lower rank who is ahead of them mathematically, the line at which that seems to be limited is a rank and a half difference. So what I mean is this. So Kirishima was Maegashira 2 East mathematically. He was Sekiwake, drops 3 ranks, so then Komusubi, M1, M2. So that's where he is. If Takano Sho only mathematically ended up at Komusubi, right? So then for Maegashira 2 East, up 1 rank is Maegashira 1 East, and then another half a rank is Komusubi 1 West. If that's where Takano Sho was mathematically, then maybe Kirishima ends up ahead of him. But that's not where he landed. From Maegashira 6, going up 7 ranks, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Forget the K2 and the S2. Just count the Komusubi and Sekiwake as 1 each. 6, and then 7, right? So that's essentially 3 ranks, right? So 1, 2, 3. That's a 3 rank difference. That's too much. So I don't think that Kirishima is going to end up ahead of Takano Sho. There's too big of a gap between those two. Takano Sho 1 East, Kirishima 1 West. The reverse is not impossible, but I do think it's unlikely. Now, Tobizaru, Atami Fuji, Gono Yama. Let's slide Oho over to 3 West because that's where he should land, but we'll work him into the conversation in a second. So Tobizaru should be ahead of Atami Fuji. The reason is Tobizaru fought 5 Sanyaku guys. Atami Fuji fought all 7. At 5 East, so the Joy is the top 16 guys. When we think of Joy preference, when we talk about that, that means the guys in that part of the Banzuke are given favorable treatment in situations where rankings are close or where they're tied. Normally, 5 East doesn't fall in that group. But with Terunofuji out and only 7 active Sanyaku, the 9th Maegashira guy down is number 16, and that is Tobizaru. So I think it would be really unfair for them to put Tobizaru behind Atami Fuji. That just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. The question is, Gonoyama mathematically was here, right? And Tobizaru was at 2 East and Atami Fuji at 2 West. So Gonoyama was slightly ahead of those two guys, but he only had 2 Sanyaku fights, and he only had those because he was doing really well. He had overall what should be considered a much easier schedule. In the instant Banzuke, I just dropped him in by math and I had him like this. What I think is a little more likely to happen, though, is that because Atami Fuji is the only one who was truly quote-unquote in the joy, had a full Sanyaku schedule, really had the hardest kind of schedule you could get, if they're going to show any preference, it's going to be to give him his +1, right? They're going to want to give him his full 1 rank increase on 8 and 7. Now, I don't think they're going to move him up to 2 East and give him an over promotion so that Tobizaru gets an under promotion. That, I don't think that's going to be fair. But they could force Atami Fuji into 2 West. Then what happens? Well, then your options are Gonoyama to 2 East and Tobizaru to 3 East, or Tobizaru to 2 East and Gonoyama to 3 East. Well, like I just said, if Gonoyama's at 2 East, then Tobizaru's at 3 East. Now Tobizaru is behind Atami Fuji. Again, I don't think that's fair. I don't think they're going to do that. So if they revolve this around the question of where Atami Fuji goes, that would be another reason why you end up with Tobizaru and Atami ahead of Gonoyama. But even beyond that, the reason I said we're going to do like a solid prediction. This is like a 90% prediction. I reserve the right to maybe change this before I turn in my actual entry. But I'm probably going to go with this, not just because this logic works, but because there's also a chance that they actually move Oho ahead of Gonoyama. Now, I don't think this is going to happen for the same reason I don't think Takanosho will be behind Kirishima. Mathematically, Gonoyama was at 1 West. He was 8 West, he goes up 7 ranks, that puts him at 1 West. Oho, from 1 East, he goes down 3, that's 4 East. He's 2.5 ranks behind Gonoyama. Like I said, the dividing line between where they're willing to push the higher ranked guy back ahead of the lower ranked guy seems to be a 1.5 rank difference here. This is too much. So I do think that Oho is locked in at 3 West, 90% locked in, and Gonoyama probably ends up at 3 East. I'm going to say probably, maybe that's too strong a word, 60% chance, let's call it. But I do think at minimum, no matter how you look at it, I think there's better than a 50-50 chance Gonoyama ends up somewhere at Maegashira 3. Because of that, and because I think Tobizaru absolutely ends up ahead of Atami Fuji, I think Tobizaru at 2 East and Atami at 2 West is your safest bet. Gonoyama, 3 East, safest bet. Oho, 3 West, safest bet. But you could shuffle these guys in a number of ways and still come up with something that works. Now from there, things actually get really easy. Chiyoshoma is not going to go up to 4 East. Yes, he's the next in line mathematically, but as we saw with Wakataka Kage coming out of July, as we saw with Nishikigi coming out of September, when guys are low ranked in those double digits, especially the lower double digits, they are really getting limited in how far they can rise. So Shodai is going to go as far up as he can, which is going to be 4 West. Then you've got Shodai to 4 East, Ura to 4 West. Endo, we're going to skip Endo for a second and go to Hirudeumi. Will Hirudeumi end up ahead of Chiyoshoma? Yeah, I think it's actually very likely this happens. So he'll go to 5 East. Now these 7 and 8 guys, even though you've got a whole bunch of ties and it looks like this could be a mess, this should sort out pretty cleanly. Mitakeumi can only go to 7 West. Endo can only go to 7 East. Roga can only go to 8 East. Everyone else with a winning record near here is only 8 and 7. There's no option but to put Chiyoshoma at 5 West. There's really no other way for this to go. They could put Chiyoshoma ahead of Hirudeumi, for example. But given what they've been doing lately, I find that highly unlikely. More than likely, Hirudeumi, 5 East, nice under demotion, stays just outside of the Joy, should be able to recover nicely at that spot. Chiyoshoma, 5 West, manages to avoid the Sanyaku, but will still probably get his ass beat. Now with these guys at 7 East, 7 West, 8 East, they can't go any higher. Now you have to just start promoting the 8 and 7s. And since they're all 8 and 7, don't worry about Kinbozan, he's coming up from Juryo, so he doesn't count for this. We just take them in order. Takayasu gets himself up to 6 East, Ichi Yamamoto gets up to 6 West. Midori Fuji can't go above 9 East, so Takara Fuji is definitely going to be at 8 West. And now we have something to think about. Let's move Kinbozan out of the way. And just by chance, that might be where he ends up, but let's look at Midori Fuji and Tamawashi for the moment. If we put Midori Fuji at 9 East and Tamawashi at 9 West, Tamawashi is getting over-promoted, and Midori Fuji is getting no demotion, just like all the other 7 and 8 guys. Then you slide Meisei over, the 2 8 and 7 guys are getting the same promotion. This all works out very nicely, but is it what's gonna happen? Logically, there should be no reason for them not to do this. There's no reason why this can't work. But they've really made a point, where possible, of demoting guys on 7 and 8 when they can. The other 7 and 8 guys were in situations where it simply wasn't possible. Now, yes, you could, for example, move Takara Fuji over and move Roga down, but are they going to move Takara Fuji up 2.5 ranks on 8 and 7 just to bump Roga down? I don't really think so. That seems unlikely. But there have been a couple of instances in the last year where guys have been, where they don't need to be split up and it looks like they shouldn't really be split up. They get split up just to make sure somebody else gets demoted or gets demoted more. For example, back in March, Kota Shoho was 8 and 7 at Maegashira 9 West, and Shodai was 8 and 7 at Maegashira 10 East. But Kota Shoho ended up going up a full rank to 8 West, and Shodai only went up a half a rank to 9 West. The guy who landed in the middle was Tamawashi, who was 7 and 8 and actually had to get over demoted by a half a rank for that to happen. There was absolutely no reason why they had to drop Tamawashi an extra half a rank with a 7 and 8 record just to give Kota Shoho a full +1 promotion. But apparently they felt that an over demotion of a half a rank was reasonable to give that +1 promotion. But that's an instance where they were just trying to move a guy up a full +1 on 8 and 7. In this case, Tamawashi would have to get over promoted. However, the very next Basho, Takano Sho was 8 and 7 at Maegashira 8 East. Kota Shoho was 8 and 7 at Maegashira 8 West. Takano Sho ended up at 6 East, so he went up 2 ranks. Kota Shoho ended up at 7 East, so he went up a rank and a half. The guy who landed between them was Oho, who was 6 and 9 at Maegashira 4 West. He actually had a Sanyaku schedule, but they were like, no, screw it. They dropped Oho back an extra half a rank and gave Takano Sho an extra rank, or an extra half a rank boost, even though he was already being over promoted with his 8 and 7 record. Such a move seems even more likely when we have a 7 and 8 guy involved who would otherwise not get any demotion at all. So, upon further consideration, I actually think we are at probably 60-40 to see Tamawashi and Meisei split up and Midori Fuji be the unlucky one to actually take a demotion on 7 and 8 of all the 7 and 8 guys in this area. I think an even better question becomes, do they also push Meisei up to move Midori back a full rank? This is possible. This could absolutely happen. For the moment, this is another one where what I'm showing you here is probably what I'm going to do, but there's like a 10% chance I'll change my mind. This is a thing where if you look at Banzuke history, this keeps happening. It's a situation where, in this case, you can definitely see guys saying, hey, put Midori ahead of Tamawashi and Meisei. They're already getting over promoted. There's really no reason to move Midori back at all. And you're going to have other guys saying, no, that's silly. Midori was 7 and 8. We've been trying to move these guys down, push him back behind both of those guys. And they argue and they argue, and then they end up coming to a compromise. They're like, all right, we'll just put Midori behind Tamawashi. Even though it's the outcome that makes the least sense, it's the compromise they come up with. It's very much in the vein of, if nobody's happy with the compromise, it must be a good compromise. That's the situation that I can foresee happening, and that's the situation that I'm going to stick with for the moment. Another upside to that is it means they can put Churanaumi at 10 West and Oshoma at 11 East and not really think about the fact that they're getting pushed way down despite having mostly a Joy schedule, mostly a Sanyaku schedule. If Midori was here and Tamawashi was here, then there might be a push to push Churanaumi ahead of Tamawashi and Meisei, but they're not going to take away the full +1. So then you split up Churanaumi and Oshoma, and that's really weird because they were both terrible. Why are you going to give Churanaumi that kind of a bump? If the situation called for it, they might, but I think for the way they've been doing these things, they haven't been super kind to wrestlers who do terribly. So what you're more likely to see, I think, is Churanaumi and Oshoma are going to eat almost the full demotion. Tamawashi and Meisei are going to stay further up, and Midori is going to be the one that gets popped back. Logically, my brain keeps telling me that logically I should just put Midori at 10 East, but just the vibes of it right now keep telling me that Midori is going to end up at 9 West. I really don't know which one it's going to be. I'm going to leave it like this for now, but Midori at 9 East, 9 West, or 10 East all makes sense. You're going to have to figure that one out on your own. Now I'm going to move Oshoma back over just to show these three guys were tied. But Oshoma, being in the Joy, he's going to end up at 11 East. He'll end up behind Churanaumi. There's absolutely no reason to put him ahead of Churanaumi, but he's also going to get preference over Terufuji and Nishikigi. That's almost a done deal for certain, unless for some reason they push Chura and Oshoma ahead of Meisei and or Tamawashi or whatever. Oshoma should end up at 11 East. From there, Nishikigi fought no Sanyaku members. He did not have any kind of a Joy schedule. So I am going to presume, because this is what they've tended to do, Terufuji, as the guy with the winning record coming up, and he's not being over promoted, should end up ahead of Nishikigi. Nishikigi will be slightly over demoted. He goes to 12 East. And then we just start bumping guys back. Onokatsu loses that half a rank, so he goes up 2.5 on 9 and 6. Shonen Umi goes up a half a rank on 8 and 7, and Hokuto Fuji, for the second time in 3 or 4 bashos, gets an over demotion of a half a rank on 7 and 8. And now for the bottom of the division, that over demotion for Hokuto Fuji is why Kinbozan ends up at Maegashira 14 East. There's really no way for him to go further up, otherwise Hokuto Fuji is going to get over demoted by a full rank, and that's not going to happen. They will not do that. So Kinbozan could end up at 14 West if they decide to put Kota Shoho ahead of him, but I don't really see any reason why they would. Kota Shoho's only Sanyaku opponent was Hoshoryu. He was really bad. -9 is the exact right mathematical promotion, and Kinbozan outperformed Hakuoho, so he was 2 wins better and a rank higher. So mathematically, that puts him 5 ranks ahead. I think they're going to create a little bit of a gap between Kinbozan and Hakuoho. The only way to do that is to put Kota Shoho between them. So then we just start dropping everybody back. Oh, I just realized Tamashoho should actually be tied with Kageyaki, not with Kitanawaka. So Hakuoho goes to 15 East, Kitanawaka is going to 15 West. Tamashoho and Kageyaki are tied. I think they're gonna just give it to Tamashoho. Again, they've been preferring winning records, but this could go either way. So Tamashoho 16 East, Kageyaki 16 West. Nishiki Fuji, the only other one who is mathematically in the division, slides over to 17 East. And then Toki Hayate, the only reasonable person to come back up into the division from being in Juryo, again mathematically, will finish at 17 West. And that is our Banzuke prediction with a couple of maybes worked in for January of 2025. The new year comes and it stays interesting. What do you think? As always, let us know in the comments what you got, where you think we got it wrong, where you think we got it right, and just what you think in general. Other than that, we got a special video coming out before the weekend. Also, I'm going to be on a little bit of a podcast with some other sumo guys. I don't even know all of who's going to be there. I just know that it's going to be recorded and posted. I don't know when it's going to be posted. So when it is, or when I know when it's going to be posted, I will let you guys know, probably in a community post. So lots of good stuff coming up. Look out for that. Other than that, have a great day, and I will see you soon.